It's the last Raw of the season, so what surprises did the WWE have in store last night? Join us now as Wrestlelamia looks at the good, the bad, and the downright ugly from the 23rd September 2019 edition of Raw, as well as a quick recap. Raw is coming to you from San Francisco, California, as Renee Young, Michael Cole, and Corey Graves are here to call the action. The Universal Champion steps out to the ring to discuss last week's attack, admitting he was already beaten down by 5 men when he had to face his worst nightmare, The Fiend. He thought it was a bad dream, but it was all too real, and now he has to face The Fiend in Hell in a Cell, a match known for shortening superstars' careers. The monster among men has a lot to say to Rollins, reminding the Beast Slayer he lost the Raw Tag Team Championship and that Rollins said he doesn't want a match with Strowman anytime soon. Seth tells Strowman he's starting to think he wants to face him sooner rather than later. The first match of the night sees Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows with AJ Styles taking on the Viking Raiders. The Battle of the Big Boys features lots of brawling as Eric and Ivar power their way to victory, executing the Viking experience on Anderson. Definitely a solid win for the Raiders. Bobby Roode is seen backstage when he tells Charlie Caruso he pinned Seth Rollins for the Raw Tag Team Championship, so he should automatically be #1 contender for Seth's Universal Championship. Michael Cole interviews Raw Women's Champion Becky Lynch about a Hell in a Cell match against Sasha Banks. Lynch boasts of all she's done for the women's division and reminds everyone Sasha Banks tried to finish her career by using a chair, so she's gonna finish the boss in the cage. The cage isn't there to keep Banks' friend Bayley out, but to keep Banks in. Next up, we see the returning Rusev take on EC3, and it's a complete squash as Rusev dispatches EC3 with the accolade. Hopefully this quick squash means that Rusev is still in line for a good push. Let's hope the WWE doesn't drop the ball on him again. Next up, it's women's action as Nikki Cross, who's with Alexa Bliss, takes on Sasha Banks, who's with Bayley. It's a back and forth battle as Nikki hits a crossbody block from the top rope, only for Banks to roll her over into the Banks statement for the tap out win. After the match, Banks dishes out more punishment to Nikki, then attacks Alexa, locking her in the Banks statement. The OC are backstage, and AJ Styles tells Anderson and Gallows they're not in his league, and neither is Cedric Alexander. The Street Profits are also backstage talking up the show, and Brock Lesnar challenging WWE Champion Kofi Kingston. The Miz shows up to announce he'll have Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan on Miz TV next week. Next up, another women's one-on-one as Lacey Evans takes on Ember Moon. Fresh off her speeding ticket, Evans speeds her way to a win over Moon, submitting her with the sharpshooter. Natalya is asked about Evans using her submission hold and says Evans hasn't perfected it, but if she wants a rematch, she'll show her how it's applied. It's time for the Firefly Funhouse as Bray Wyatt tries to get Huskus and Ramblin' Rabbit to stop fighting over a Seth Rollins action figure. Wyatt has added another picture to his wall of victims, but we can't see who it is. Wyatt breaks the figure in half and hands them each a piece. Wyatt's animal friends say they don't want the Fiend to hurt Seth. Wyatt tells them maybe he's trying to protect Seth. It's 24/7 title shenanigans time as 24/7 champion R-Truth and Carmella are on the run. Mella tells Truth she can't take the stress anymore. They hug and Carmella rolls up Truth to win the belt from them and then hops on the back to make an escape. We guess the title was worth more than the friendship. We can only think that this would lead to Renee Michelle pinning Carmella for the belt, winning it and then consummating the marriage. Backstage, Sasha Banks gloats about her victory tonight to Bayley and vows to get back what belongs to her. Baron Corbin mocks Gable's height before their match and promises a short match. That match is up next as there's no escape for Corbin when Gable locks in the ankle lock, that is except for King Corbin's Royal Scepter. Corbin blasts Gable with it, earning a disqualification. After the match, Corbin continues his onslaught, bludgeoning Gable with the scepter. The Authors of Pain are on a mission and proclaim they've exposed the tag team division as soft. Razor and Akam beat up a hapless Heath Slater and No Way Jose before entering Aleister Black's room, finding it empty. Next up is the Fatal 5-Way elimination match to determine the challenger for the Universal Championship at the 30th September Raw between Robert Roode, AJ Styles, Shinsuke Nakamura, Ricochet, and Rey Mysterio. Nakamura pins Ricochet after landing the Kinshasa, AJ pins Nakamura after he hits a phenomenal forearm, a glorious DDT by Roode eliminates Styles, and Rey wins with the 619 and a springboard splash. Rey Mysterio is the new #1 contender for Seth Rollins' Universal Championship. And it's now time for the main event as Universal Champion Seth Rollins takes on Braun Strowman in a non-title match. The monster among men has things going his way when he picks Rollins up for a power slam, but then the lights go out and fans know what's next, and sure enough, the Fiend arrives, subduing Strowman with the mandible claw while Rollins cowered in the corner. The match resulted in a no contest and closed out the show. But that was a quick recap. What about the good, the bad, and the downright ugly? Let's start off with the good as #1, telling many stories. The WWE told many stories tonight, whether it was in interviews, talk segments, or short matches. The upcoming confrontation between Seth Rollins and The Fiend continued developing, with Rollins admitting he was terrified of The Fiend. Becky Lynch's feud with Sasha Banks continued to build, as did Robert Roode's growing singles push. The WWE deserved credit for using its time effectively last night, something that's unheard of in 3-hour shows. #2, not fearing The Fiend. It's safe to say that the WWE dropped the ball big time with Braun Strowman, but at least not all was a loss, as even though The Fiend managed to get him in a surprise attack, whilst Rollins laid there screaming in the corner, Strowman stood his ground and tried his best to counter the creature from hell, even getting up after the initial mandible claw. It was a subtle action that just made Strowman look like more of a badass. The atmosphere was also terrific, just the haunting music that accompanied The Fiend taking down Strowman as he's in pain, with zero commentary. #3, building up 2 potential superstars. Now, do the fans really care about Baron Corbin or Chad Gable? It's a tough question to answer, but the WWE seems determined to give the fans a reason to give both men a chance, thanks to their current program. Corbin seems to have finally got over after a year and a half of pushes, and it's equally interesting as to how long Vince McMahon stays behind Chad Gable, who Vince is said to be enthusiastic about. Now, we did initially cite the idea that both men were having a rematch a week later, but both men really delivered in the ring with a fantastic match. King Corbin has proved to be a great heel, as he managed to get the crowd really into it, as let's be fair, not many people gave a hoot about Gable, but King Corbin made them care. It's similar to Ted DiBiase and Virgil's feud in the early 90s, as DiBiase was such a good enough heel that he made the fans care about Virgil, and that proved when once the feud was over, nobody gave a hoot about Virgil. Let's hope the same thing doesn't happen with Gable, as he's still a promising superstar, but it seems that history's gonna repeat itself. And #4, the new Raw logo. In case you missed it, WWE revealed that the Beast Incarnate will be appearing at the 30th September 2019 edition of Raw, and they showed a graphic of this, and interestingly, the new Raw logo appeared next to him. We're not sure about you guys, but the new Raw logo, which has only been given a slight modification, looks better than it did before. The new logo seems to have a much darker tone of red, and has an arrow underneath it. Hopefully the arrow pointing down didn't coincidentally illustrate Raw's ratings downfall. Just kidding. But that was the good. What about the bad as #1, the cowardly champion? Seth Rollins explaining his fearful response to The Fiend made sense last week, as Rollins recalled getting beat up by 5 men then having to face Bray Wyatt. However, there was no excuse for Rollins repeating his actions tonight, as it only gets Wyatt over further as a babyface, something the WWE doesn't seem to be aiming for just yet, although it is inevitable. Unless Rollins reveals that this was all trick on his part, it's bad booking. #2, the resurgence of Rey Mysterio. Now, don't get us wrong, we absolutely love Rey Mysterio. He's one of our most favourite superstars of all time, but many could argue that Mysterio shouldn't have won the fatal 5-way elimination match, and instead should have given other rising stars such as Ricochet a chance. After all, Rey has pretty much proved his career's worth by becoming a Triple Crown and Grand Slam champion, thus why should he be getting a push over others and be given a title shot? Now, we know that this is a segue into trying to bring Dominic on screen as a wrestler, but the storyline seems uninteresting so far and comes at the expense of holding a few deserved wrestlers back. And #3, weakening the tag champions. In its effort to build up Sasha Banks as a badass, the WWE took a page from its playbook of having a single star be the tag team champion. While a Nikki Cross singles loss to the Boss was expected in order to build her up as a credible foe for Lynch, it weakened the tag team champions and the title. Thankfully for this week's edition, there was no downright ugly. In conclusion, Raw proved enough to be a decent show. In fact, the closing was one of the best we've seen in recent weeks, and it gives us hope that the WWE won't fail Strowman again. As for the WWE's strange booking of Seth Rollins being a coward, I'm not sure if we could justify that, even if it makes The Fiend look more powerful. Rollins is the champion, he should stand strong. But what did you guys think of Raw? Let us know in the comments down below, subscribe if you haven't already, follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.